So over to you, Nathaniel.
Great, here I am. Thanks for the introduction, Karen. So, welcome everyone. I'm excited to learn a little bit about you guys already, and I'm really excited you're here to learn with me. This is Introduction to Blockchain, and we designed this session to be multidisciplinary and to cater to students from all different backgrounds and all fields of study. So I hope that these concepts are valuable for you, no matter what you're studying or what your interests are. And I'm curious to learn more about you, and so I hope that you guys will be sharing and engaging with us as we go through these sessions. And I hope that the challenges I give you are exciting. A little bit about me. My name is Nate Strang. I'm a consultant in the blockchain industry. And specifically what I do is I help businesses create innovative solutions, whether it's to solve a problem or it's to capitalize on an opportunity. And I use blockchain to help businesses do that. And if you don't know much about blockchain, from that job description, it may sound like blockchain is just some other piece of technology that businesses can use to create new value. And part of that is true, but there's a little bit of a missing piece in that definition, and that missing piece is the role that innovation plays in introducing new technology to solve problems. And oftentimes when we see a new technology, it enables businesses to do things better. And that's really the attractiveness of technology, whether it's more cheaply or more conveniently or some other gain in efficiency. The real value of technologies, though, is when we use them to come up with entirely new ways of doing things and getting things done. And that's the difference between a progression or an improvement and an innovation. And when we look at blockchain, we want to innovate. We want to create new experiences that weren't possible before this technology was available. And over the course of this course, I'm going to hopefully show you how to be that innovator that uses blockchain to create new business solutions and new innovations. And I'm going to give you this set of tools that will allow you to put yourself in a similar position in your career where you can help businesses innovate. Before we do that, and before I can help you understand blockchain and look at it the way an innovator would understand it, we need to understand what the mindset of innovation is. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to explore what it means to have an innovative mindset. And then we're going to look at that principle and that set of principles in the context of some use cases of the internet and how some certain companies have actually been innovative, have presented innovative solutions using the internet, similar to the way businesses are approaching blockchain today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll have some questions, time for questions at the end, and we're going to stop a few ways through. But if you have anything burning, feel free to the raise hand button down here.
So I'm just going to remind you that you can use the hands up button as well as the chat box. I'll monitor that and call out questions as we go along.
Perfect. Thanks, Karen. So here, I know Karen just shared this, but to recap with you, kind of an update to our session schedule. Here we are today with session 1. And next week, we're going to continue Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, same time. And in week 3, we'll have our 5th, 6th, and 7th sessions, and on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, still at the same time, 3 o'clock Eastern. And what's really exciting that I'm excited to tell you about is at the end of these sessions, we're going to be looking for a set of students, hopefully some of you, who are engaged and interested in participating in an actual implementation of an innovative blockchain solution. So remember that as we progress through these courses and through these topics, that the goal at the end is to actually apply these in a real business environment and build a real blockchain solution. So let's go ahead and get started. Here we are today, understanding innovation and the internet's noteworthy use cases. And the reason that we're starting here is if we want to use blockchain to innovate or create new value for businesses, we have to understand one thing And that one thing is that, sure, just like the internet, blockchain is an innovation itself, but more importantly, it serves as a foundation for more innovations and businesses to build solutions on top of. Now, I just got a poor connection notice. Is my audio coming through okay? Karen, am I having any issues?
I can hear you.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, shoot, I was talking to myself. You're coming through well with a little bit of breakup, but it's okay.
Okay, just give me a nudge if it gets any worse, if you don't mind.
I'll do that.
Thanks. So this is a really critical principle for us to understand, is that the power of blockchain is to create new value and not to improve current or legacy ways of doing things. And let's just think about that in the case of the internet. When the internet came out, sure, it was classified as an innovation, but it was to businesses who used it to create new ways of doing things than it was to businesses who just applied it to their current practices. And I'll give you this one example. Think of music. When the internet came around, who do you think was more successful? The businesses who used the internet as a way to do what they were already doing, selling physical music? Or were the businesses that realized that the internet provided a new way to deliver music? And I think the answer to that is obvious. The businesses that created a new way of doing something using the internet as a foundation were the ones that were truly successful and the ones that lasted the test of time.
And in Canada, the famous story would be Blockbuster versus Netflix.
Netflix.
Yeah.
And we'll get to Blockbuster and Netflix.
Okay.
But yes, that's a good one. So that's a really important thing for us to remember too. And before we look at innovation any further, I want to highlight a really common misconception that I hope hasn't influenced any of you too much until now. And that misconception is what I call the myth about expertise. And the myth about expertise is pretty simple, and it says that you must be a subject matter expert in order to in any given field. And the truth is that in today's day and age, the best innovators design only with a functional understanding of certain technologies. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. Innovation is not about expertise. It's just a combination of two things: observation and creativity. Look at this rock. In our hands, a rock can be a tool, a weapon, or a paperweight. And if I want to turn a rock into a paperweight, I don't need to be a rock expert. I just need to know if the rock is going to be heavy enough to weigh down paper, and I can do that by testing it. And actually, the results I get from testing may be more insightful than the advice a rock expert might offer. A rock expert may give you the most dense rock imaginable, but they may not know that the appearance of the rock is also important to the users of a paperweight. And that's why the power of observation is so critical and so valuable to innovation, and why an expert, while they can be of value, the expert may suggest a rock that's both dense and beautiful. The innovation using a rock as a paperweight is based on observation and not expertise. Let's look at a little bit more relevant example. I know that was quite rudimentary. This guy, Elon Musk. Sure, Elon Musk probably has a little better grasp on physics than most of us, but he's not a physics expert. And I would ask you, what is Musk an expert in? Is it the auto industry? Is it batteries? Is it solar energy, space travel? The truth is that he's not an expert in any of those things. And Elon Musk is what we call a generalist. And Musk's genius and his success in business has come from his imagination and his ability to connect different experiences and different observations to do things better and faster than any expert in one field could ever imagine. And that brings us to a kind of a principle that's important when we look at experts and generalists, and that's that for every 3 or so deep specialist experts, you generally need 1 generalist who can see the applications in between that those specialists would miss. And this power of non-expert observation is really critical to innovation. And each of you can be the observer or the creator in an innovation process within a business. So most of you probably have experience thinking of something new. It's pretty common to think of new business ideas, especially when we experience things. And some of you guys may have even implemented some of those ideas, whether it's software or a lemonade stand even. But the point that I want to drive home here is, especially in a business context, the idea or the process of thinking of something new is much less valuable than the implementation of something new. So when we approach new business solutions, whether it's using blockchain or some other more simple combination of factors, if you come up with an idea, don't stop there. Continue asking the questions and conducting the research that now allow you to develop an understanding of the implementation. And the reason for that is that when we consider the implementation, we often find new nuances or pieces of information that weren't available to us when we were just thinking at that surface level of creating. So how do we go about implementing something new? There are lots of names for this. Some people call this design thinking, but for our intents and purposes, we're going to call this the innovation method. And there are 4 basic steps to going from idea to implemented solution. First one is obviously to identify a creative solution to an opportunity or a problem. That's come up with your idea. But before you do anything, you need to make sure that that idea is going to do what you wanted it to do. So you need to test that idea with your target users, whether that's interviews, surveys, prototypes, or any combination of those things. And after we've gathered what we feel is a sufficient amount of feedback, we can move to step 3, which is to take that feedback and refine our solution into something that we feel comfortable releasing that solution to the world, that it meets the needs of the users that we designed it for. And you may think we're done, but in actuality, we have a step 4, which is to repeat this process. And the reason that we always repeat in innovation is that no solution is perfect. And that is a really common misconception that people in all aspects of business fall into, which is that when we ship a solution to our customers, great, we're done. But only the best innovators and the most successful businesses know that when we ship a solution, that's when the real work starts. That's when we need to learn from our customers about how they're engaging with it and what we can do better. And we repeat this innovation process after we've gathered that feedback, and we can go again to create a new solution that's going to serve our customers better. So this is the general kind of flow of the method of innovation, or the innovation method. And I want to show you guys one more general principle about innovation before we get into some use cases. And that's what we call the innovation curve. And the innovation curve is simply the improvement in quality of life that innovation typically brings. And if we remember back to that previous slide, we'll remember that because no solution is perfect, innovation doesn't always create a pure and positive improvement in quality of life. In fact, sometimes it creates a negative impact on quality of life. But that's not what businesses often lead us to believe. As consumers, we believe that this is what innovation results in: a steady and constant improvement in quality of life. But in actuality, the innovation curve looks more like this. And we can treat each of these arrows as a solution. And these red arrows are actually solutions that, while they of course set out to improve some aspect of life or some experience, they actually made it worse. And let me give you an example of that. Let's look at Tesla. I'm sure we all consider Tesla to be an innovation. And it's an innovation because Tesla was the first company to provide the benefit of electric automotive travel in a luxury car experience. But I'm sure you guys are already thinking of what were the trade-offs that Tesla made. Driving range is a common one. That's one that they couldn't really hide. And let's not forget that Teslas also still get their power from the grid, and grids get their power by burning fossil fuels in most areas of the world. So while that's a solution at the point of car, there's even a trade-off with the efficiency or the seeming efficiency that a Tesla provides. So there are trade-offs. Whenever we introduce a new solution, it's not perfect. And I hope that looking at the Tesla helps that ring true for you. Now, when we introduce a new solution to the market, we have to kind of follow this process and follow this cycle. So Tesla released a new solution, their car, and that created the opportunity for new experiences with their customers. Drivers could get in a car and drive without hitting a gas station. But that experience came with a trade-off, which is that I drive for 200 miles before I need to go and charge my car. So that new experience that Tesla created results in new needs, new expectations of the customer. So as I'm driving a Tesla, I now have a new need to go and find a charging station that did not exist when I was driving my fossil fuel burning car. And I may even expect Tesla to provide that for me. So what does Tesla do? They identify this unmet need and they go out and design a solution. I'm sure most of you guys have heard of Tesla's superstations. And Tesla's superstation represented a solution to this new need or new expectation that their car created. Now, I'm not sure if any of you drive Teslas or if you've been in a Tesla or been to a superstation. I haven't, but I've driven past several of them in California, and frequently I see 20 to 30 cars lined up waiting to charge. And so that tells me that even the superstation isn't a perfect solution. And that means Tesla has more work to do to improve that further. So I hope this has made it clear that innovation is not a process that has an end. Innovation is a continuous process. And this is pretty exciting for people who like to solve problems, because it tells us that the nature of humanity ensures that there will never be a shortage of innovation opportunities. And that's pretty cool. Now, we're going to jump into some use cases. We're going to look at how we understand technology systems as an innovator. But before we do that, does anyone have any questions or comments that they wanted to share about any of the topics we've covered about innovation?
So for comments, remember you can use the chat box and you can put your hand up and request the mic.
Perfect. Well, I will move on, but if anyone comes up with a question, feel free to raise your hand. I'm just going to get back to my slides here.
I just want to know if anyone is driving a Tesla already. Anyone?
Tom smiley face. He looks like he could be a Tesla driver.
He's not. No, it doesn't look like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because only, like, I think, is the stat still less than 3% of people are using electric cars?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was that low.
It's still quite low, even though, so the idea of innovation is it does take a while to ramp up because of the issues that it's created related to access to plugins and stuff. Thanks.
Right. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on. And we're looking at technology systems. Now, I'm not here to teach you how a calculator works, I promise. The reason I'm showing you this is whatever technology system we look at, whether it's a calculator, a vacuum cleaner, or a computer, there are 5 basic components. we have an input. We have a device to receive that input, which in this case is our calculator. We have some process that goes on in the system. In our case here is computation. And that computation produces an output. And then of course we need a device to display that output too. And in our case, we can see here that our input and output devices are the same. But regardless of any technology system we look at, we can usually and almost always identify these 5 components. And what these 5 components allow us to do is they give us an idea of what the functional roles and functional elements of the system are. And I'll explain to you why that's so important in a few slides here. Let's look at a slightly more complex example. Let's look at an offline computer. Here we still have our input device, which in this case is a keyboard. And this time our process is different. Our process is transmission. And that is essentially the action of transmitting that input from one device to another. So we can see here that in the case of a transmitting technology system, our input and outputs are the same. And while these are extremely simple examples, transmission and computation are the 2 core functions of almost all technology systems. Now, we're trying to get to blockchain. We're trying to get to these larger infrastructure technologies like the internet. But before we do that, we're missing something. And we're missing the principle of a network operating system. And all a network operating system is it is a technology system that actually holds and allows multiple independent systems to communicate or transmit information. So this is extremely basic diagram of a network system. We have our clients, which are just local devices. And if we remember, a laptop is a whole technology system in and of itself. And then we have a server, and a server is just a technology system that is responsible for transmitting information. And this concept of a network operating system is interesting because it allows us to access more information and to provide more information to a system than just one device, one client could. So this concept of a network operating system is going to make a lot more sense when we look at an internet. Obviously, this is a extremely simple diagram, but we can look here and we can see that we have our local users are our clients, client 1 and client 2. And inside this cloud, we have hundreds of thousands of routers and servers. And all those routers and servers do is they transmit information in one step of the information's journey from client 1 to client 2 or client 2 to client 1. So even though there are lots of extremely complex processes that go on in this cloud, as an innovator, this is about the level of understanding that I need to have of the internet in order to design a solution. Because what this tells me is that the internet allows me to transmit information broadly to any client that's connected to the network. And as we go into some use cases, you'll see why that's about the level of understanding that an innovator who's going to use the internet requires. And just to kind of give you guys a definition, here's the true value of the internet. It enables parties to transfer information more quickly, more broadly, and more cheaply than ever before. Now we can go back and look at the innovative natures of our calculator or our computer, but the important point is that if we remember, we defined the internet as more of a framework for innovations, just like blockchain, than an actual innovation in and of itself. And so with that understanding, I kind of want to poll the class and hopefully get some ideas out of you in what are some common innovations that the internet supports? Or what new experiences did the internet enable for you? I'm looking for at least one. Someone
Okay.
share one with me.
Michael's got video streaming. Anyone
Okay.
else? Examples of
Oh, I'm
innovation?
gonna pop up right here. Video streaming is a great one. Money
Money
transfer.
transfer. Oh, you're reading it now? I'll leave it with you.
Thanks. So feel free to pop some more in there, but let's look at that first one of video streaming. So if we really boil down what experience video streaming enabled, it allows us to have a face-to-face conversation from far away. And that's essentially transmitting information from one client to another. Money transfer is the same thing. We no longer need to go and drive to our bank in order to send money. We can use the internet as a transmission system for that purpose. And again, these may sound painfully simple, but a lot of the use cases of the value that the internet offers is painfully simple. So we're going to go through a couple of the more common and the longest lasting use cases of the internet and try and look at what the internet allowed or supported in those use cases.
And did you see the two other examples of dating and information?
I did not see the dating.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dating is an interesting one, and I would say that we could look at dating kind of from the context of a social network, and we're going to look at Facebook later on. So let's circle back to that idea of dating when we hit Facebook.
Okay, and then Wanya ended with education.
Right.
Which is
education, access to information. Those are both really important values that the internet provided. And we're actually going to look at some use cases that leverage that right now. So let's look at this one. Actually, yeah, we're going to skip that for now. So let's look at Amazon. What did Amazon do that was innovative? Can anyone tell me? You can use the chat or feel free to connect your audio. What improvement in quality of life did Amazon bring to its users? And we're talking about initially, not today.
Basically, very fast delivery.
Exactly. The first thing that Amazon did was innovative. They didn't just sell books online. They observed what a customer who wants a book expects. And they realized that the immediate gratification of getting a book immediately when I buy it from a bookstore was pretty important to the book buying experience. So Amazon realized that they needed to optimize the logistics and the distribution process so that people could get books in their hands in only a few days. And just with this simple observation, they took a business that's been around for ages, and they figured out a way to use the basic value of the internet to create an entirely new experience for their users. So by putting their storefront online and as automating that supply chain, they enabled people to buy books from home without waiting 2 weeks to get them. So that was a really important innovation that Amazon did from square one, and that really solidified their business proposition. So can anyone tell me what they did next?
We had Wanja that had said earlier about tracking.
Tracking. Okay, so tracking, I would say, while it is of value, I don't think that Amazon was the innovator and the creator of the idea of tracking. So I would say that tracking is what we call a natural progression, or something that made sense for Amazon to do given the innovation that they created. Fast and cheap delivery we talked about, that was the nature of the innovation in the first place. Feedback I would put in the same field as tracking. Again, I don't think that was innovative when Amazon did it for the first time. It was more of a value that Amazon could offer given what they were doing. What Amazon did next was they realized we have a great infrastructure on the internet to sell books and movies and CDs. So why not apply that logistics to more products in the world? And just with that simple observation, Amazon massively exploded, and they went from being the world's bookstore to being the world's general store, really. And while this was huge, this could even be a borderline natural progression too, because this was more of an extension of what Amazon was already doing than something really new. But that's a borderline one, and we'll see some more examples of what are more clearly innovations and what are more clearly progressions. But Amazon did do one more thing that was new and innovative, and it's completely different from the first two. Does anyone have an idea of what the third thing Amazon did was? Recommend products? Nope. I would say that's progression too.
Wow, it's hard.
Bingo, Ayode. That's exactly what they did. Amazon Web Service. And Amazon came up with AWS because they had these massive servers and databases to support their global infrastructure of products. And they realized that they had free space. So they said, why don't we rent this to businesses that need spare capacity? And that was innovative at the time. Amazon was the first person to commoditize their server centers. And that was a very basic service initially. But Amazon now hosts more infrastructure for other companies than they do for themselves. So this simple observation of, hey, we have space, let's rent it, has turned into more value for Amazon's business than their store or their commerce department does. So that's pretty important. Now, everything else that Amazon has done, you guys have mentioned a few that are definitely values, but those are kind of derivative of these core new innovative solutions. And that's important for a business to grow, but it's not necessarily where competitive advantage or value is created. Now, I want to ask you guys another challenging question. What would an effective competitor to Amazon look like? If you had all the money and all the resources in the world, how would you go out and do Amazon better than Amazon's doing it? Game solutions. Did that just come in? It looks like that was an old answer. Does anyone have an idea about how?
Shopify, yeah.
Sorry? Could you explain to me what you mean by Shopify, Alex? So Mark makes a point. The very fact that Shopify is an existing solution means that it wouldn't be very innovative for Amazon to do. It could be something that they offer, but I wouldn't call that an innovation. Fulfillment centers, again, I think Amazon, it's something that they're already doing.
Wow.
They would have to actually make the products and then, sell them. Because right now they advertise other products, right? Other.
So bringing production and manufacturing in-house.
Yeah.
And let me just probe that one more. The sharing environment?
Yes.
What do you mean by that, Karen?
Oh, I don't know. Instead of selling stuff, that you're connecting people, because you're using your technology to what? So you're saying what? Because what would a competitor do? What could a competitor do better than Amazon?
So maybe instead of connecting people with products, we connect them with people who sell products that they may want, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are both, I would say, interesting things. I think that manufacturing, maybe not call that an innovation. I'm sure Amazon has a reason that they don't manufacture, but like Cameron points out, they do have their Amazon basics. But that point that you bring up, Karen, about more of an economy sharing approach, or more of a free market approach to a commerce platform like Amazon, that could be something interesting and innovative that a competitor could introduce.
And Binny was doing vertical integration, so getting into the supply, to the supply chain. I don't think price. AO, right. I don't think price. Right? AO's suggesting it's not very competitive.
No, I wouldn't say that lower prices would be an innovative competitor. Maybe a competitor. But let's not harp on Amazon because we have a few more that we'll get to, and those are fun too. So I don't see any more answers coming in on Amazon, so we're gonna go ahead and move to Google.
And you're not offering any answers. Is that what you're saying?
We're gonna do the answers at the end.
Okay.
Would you actually, Karen? We can do answers one at a time. So.
You do it any way you like.
That's okay. I think that's a good idea. Yeah. So what made Amazon innovative? 3 things. They optimized their logistics to give customers books, to deliver books to customers in an amount of time that was gratifying to them. They then expanded their infrastructure to support more offerings than books. And then the third thing they did was they realized that their infrastructure had spare space and they rented it out to other companies. Now, what role did the internet play in those 3 things? Remember that the core value of the internet is to transmit information. Could we say that the internet provided a broadcast platform for their storefront?
Replace the storefront.
Connecting.
Yeah.
Right? So broadcasting and connecting the storefront. And there's one more, and that was when looking at the supply chain. The internet also provided a communications platform for connecting all of the parties and the stakeholders in Amazon's supply chain. So both of those are super simple values that the internet offered, and they just basically enabled the transmission of information. Now let's look at Google. What did Google do that was innovative? Can anyone tell me?
That was content, right? Content?
What do you mean when you say content? Give me a few more words.
Aggregating content, making content accessible.
So Yahoo was already doing a popular search engine when Google came out.
Yeah.
Algorithm for search. That's a high-level answer, Alex. Can you tell me a little bit more about maybe what the algorithm did that was unique? While you're thinking, Alex, I will. Okay. I'll tell you guys what Yahoo was doing, and maybe that will help.
And Tom's got helping us to find information.
Information about anything and everything. Again, back when Google started, Yahoo was a search engine, but the way that Yahoo was organized was it was literally a directory of websites managed by people. And those people would go in, they would look at a website, and they would say, this fits into these search categories. And then Yahoo tried to get into keyword searching, but that had its own set of problems. But what Google did that was unique is they introduced the concept of page ranking. And the concept of page ranking means that search results are dependent on a page's popularity. And that was really unique because Google was actually crowdsourcing search results from their users. And that was a new idea at the time. Yahoo hadn't yet realized that the users of the internet could provide a value to their service. They were still doing everything in a centralized and internal operating structure. And so Google coming up with this idea of page ranking and allowing a page's popularity to educate search results was extremely innovative at the time. And that's what gave Google the foundation that allowed them to grow to be the massive business that they are today. Now, there's one more thing that Google did that was innovative. Voice search, Google Lens, nope. That wasn't them. Can anyone tell me? Lots of people older than Google.
I'm older than them. I don't know.
Google Images, nope. Google Images is a natural progression of their search.
We take it for granted. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. It is. So the second thing Google did was what's called context-sensitive advertising. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of Google AdWords and all those platforms, but what was unique that Google did is because they knew what you were searching for, not just in real time, but also historically, they were able to serve up ads that were specifically targeted to you. And that was something that no other ad platform could do at the time because no one else had the amount of data that Google did, because Google was the only one collecting that data for its page rankings. So this principle of targeted advertising was really Google's idea, and they were only able to introduce this because of what they were already doing with page rankings. Now, beyond those two things, most of what Google did was just derivative of something else that someone else had already done, or just a natural progression or addition to these two core innovations. Even all the apps, G Suite and Gmail, even Google Docs. Microsoft was offering a Google Docs similar service to their enterprise customers when Google launched it. So none of those things that you guys may use every day and love Google for are actually innovation. They're just progression and derivative of these core innovative solutions that Google used to become the world's most popular search engine. Now, I'm going to ask the same question. Can anyone think of how you might do Google better than Google does it? If you had all the money and all the resources, how could you create an innovative competitor to Google?
Anticipate.
Anticipate what people are going to search?
Yeah. A new need for information. No.
So predictive search.
Predictive search.
That's interesting.
I know
that would be new.
Thinking. I know what you're thinking.
Interestingly,
mind control. Yeah, Marco.
Mind control. So Google's latest SEO, I think it's called Hummingbird, actually does what's called context-based search. So Google now uses your location and things like that to predict search results. But I don't think they've quite gotten to predictive
I know what you need
predictive
to know.
searching. That's
Anyone
definitely
else?
out there. I like that you guys are thinking out of the box.
What could someone do better than Google? I don't know.
It could be improving the search results, or it could be improving the contextual advertising. Okay, that's okay. We'll have opportunities for more ideas.
Does that mean we're not innovative, or what does that mean?
No, these are hard companies to innovate, or else someone else would have already done it, and they wouldn't be the big players that they were. And one of the reasons that these use cases are interesting to look at is there aren't many disadvantages. And that's because these companies have managed to stay dominant.
Yeah.
So these questions are meant to be challenging.
Yeah. Wanya has the the Internet of Things in terms of the, is that an illustration of context that you're talking about? With the context being
So
the
maybe you mean, Wanya, gathering context from more things than just your typical, browsing devices. I don't have a full landscape on the IoT space, so I'm not sure if that's necessarily innovative, but assuming that it hasn't been done, that could definitely be an innovative competitor to Google, something that uses your connected devices to draw more context and predict and provide search results in that way. I saw a hand go up and a hand go down. So those are great. Those are definitely more out of the box than I think what we came up with for Amazon. So we're going in the right direction. Now, just to recap with you, what did the internet contribute to Google? Well, it allowed Google to use the internet's users as the brains behind its search results. So this may not be a direct transmission of information, but it is a, in this case, the internet is providing a means for information to be shared, albeit indirect or involuntary information. And they've really just used this idea of crowd intelligence to make finding what you're looking for on the internet faster and easier. Is that a hand still up?
No, I think we're good.
Yes, Mark. Oh, no? Okay. Okay. So that's Google.
Wow, that was big thinking.
Well, what about this one? Wikipedia. What did Wikipedia do that was innovative?
That's shared content.
What do you mean by shared content?
Everyone's contributing content. Alex is saying
Right.
that.
Right. So to put that
And ranking
in other words,
and ranking its correctness, like checking each other.
exactly. It was crowdsourced knowledge. And what was interesting about this is Google was already out there when Wikipedia came out, but Wikipedia realized that there were certain things on Google that were opinion driven, and that we needed this consensus that can constitute knowledge versus opinion, and that was an important resource for the world. So Wikipedia said, well, why don't we crowdsource knowledge and allow anyone to contribute to this wealth of information? And that's what they did. So Google, if you're looking for news or researching a product, Google's the way to go. But I'm sure you guys have experienced that if you're looking up something like quantum mechanics or string theory, I wouldn't use Google for that. And that discrepancy between knowledge and opinion is what enabled Wikipedia to become this desk reference or this infinite source of knowledge for the world. And they did that by crowdsourcing information from the internet's users. So that's a similar principle to Google's approach, which is using the users of a system to generate value, and the value of the system, the internet, and its ability to transmit that information is really secondary. So that's a really out-of-the-box way of thinking about something, is if we say, well, we're not just going to use this system, we're going to use the experiences or the resources that this system gives us access to, which in this case was users of the internet. Now, if you had all the money and all the resources in the world, how could you do Wikipedia better? Remember, Wikipedia never charged a penny. You don't have to think about money in this case, but could you present a better version of Wikipedia?
That's where you need leaders or
So GM, you wouldn't quote as an authority on scientific papers. So how could Wikipedia become more of an authority?
Oh.
They could track contributions. They could rank based on the credentials of those contributors. There's an idea.
Oh my God, Amazon wants to buy them.
Peer-reviewed collaborations, exactly. So peer
GM
review
has just
has
missed
been
his
done.
opportunity to get hired. I just want to point out the use of GM versus giving your name in case Nate wants to hire you,
That's
GM.
true.
Academia.
That's okay. I respect privacy.
Oh, that's okay.
So
Yeah.
academia, right? That's a peer-reviewed journal database. It's a research database, but academia costs money. They charge money, and it's not necessarily a crowdsourcing of information. It's more of a crowdsourcing of already peer-reviewed journals. So again, Wikipedia is not an easy thing to come up with an innovative competitor for. So I like these ideas. Continue to think about this. Feel free to raise your hand if you come up with anything for Amazon or Google or Wikipedia. But we're going to move on to our fourth out of 5, Facebook. So there's actually very little that's innovative about Facebook. It came after MySpace. So the idea of the online social network was already there, but can anyone tell me what Facebook did that was unique or innovative? And I'll give you a hint. It allowed them to become widely popular and to outpace MySpace. Shared pics. That's getting there. Sharing is the key word there.
But it's everyone else's content. They don't own any.
They don't own any content, but that was what MySpace was doing.
Yeah.
Likes.
Which is ranking.
I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure MySpace was doing likes. What Facebook did that was unique was they gave you the ability to connect to your entire social circle and broadcast to them without having to send individual messages. And that's a basic definition, but that can be applied to pictures, updates, or any other information. And that was unique to Facebook. MySpace didn't enable you to do that. Back then, if I wanted to share something with a group of friends, I had to go get each of their email addresses. So this was the basic value that Facebook offered. They allowed you to maintain your social circle and store it in one place, but they also gave you the freedom and the accessibility to share and broadcast to that entire circle in a single effort. And that was pretty unique and exciting to people. They then went on to extend this, and they now provide this value to businesses. And there have been several natural progressions that Facebook's introduced, whether it's advertising or any of their other recent features. But that broadcasting to the masses was what Facebook did that was innovative at its core. Now, there have been lots of attempts to compete with Facebook. There are lots of other social networks out there. Facebook bought Instagram. But has anyone either previously or can they come up with now an effective and innovative competitor to Facebook? I'm sorry. How could we enhance the experience of connecting with and broadcasting with our experience with our community online? Privacy. Yep.
From GM, which is cute.
Privacy is a big one, but I would argue that there are solutions out there that allow you to connect with your network that do allow you to maintain your privacy. So while that's a disadvantage of Facebook, I wouldn't say that I would necessarily be an innovative competitor if I just did a Facebook that respected user privacy more.
Is this like tribes and being
What
able to
about,
find like people?
well, there are groups, right? Facebook groups. Less ads. That's an interesting point. Could the competitor come up with a way to help businesses earn on the platform without, or help businesses promote on Facebook without deteriorating the user's experience with ads?
Predictive friend making.
Verification of users. Again, if Twitter's already doing that, that wouldn't necessarily be an innovation. Predictive friend making, I like that, Karen. If you look at your experience on Facebook and you say, well, what's missing? What is missing from this than an actual authentic connection or social network? Predictive friend making is one.
The guy with the cottage that I want to meet.
Right.
The dating.
Or what if Facebook could predict what information you wanted to share with your friends, and they could say, my friends who went fishing with me, I'm going to send my fishing videos automatically to them.
Don't forget to
So
tell.
there's kind of this predict. Yep. So Facebook's another hard one, but that idea of predicting users' needs and users' expectation is a way that you could come up with an innovative alternative to Facebook. Now we're going to do the last one, which I hope is a fun one, Netflix. And we're going to get really out of the box on the competition, I hope. So what did Netflix do that was innovative? It has to do with Blockbuster, or the experience of going to Blockbuster.
Content online.
Well, before everything was online, Amazon delivered DVDs, right? So what was that first experience that they
were they the first streaming?
I'm talking about before the streaming.
Before the streaming.
They allowed you to rent movies without going to the store.
Right.
They were basically the Amazon of video rentals.
Because guest is saying subscriptions to movies in the comfort of
So
their home.
Once they started delivering movies without requiring you to go to the store, they realized, well, I send the physical movies when we can distribute them over the internet much more cheaply. And there was the true, exploding innovation of Netflix. And that was so valuable for them because it was so much cheaper to distribute over the internet than it was in the traditional physical medium. Sharing the account, I would argue that's not quite innovative. I'm sure there are family accounts around.
And they're trying to figure out how to block that.
Right.
And then it gets to AI, it gets to predictive, right?
Right. So tracked users' watching habits. That was, I would say that once Netflix launched their streaming, there were other companies out there tracking habits, and that was a progression or an addition and less of an innovation. So Netflix exclusive shows and movies, that's an interesting topic because I see that as kind of a result of Netflix's innovation. Because they disrupted the distribution channels, the legacy physical distribution channels, they now had this opportunity to create a new supply chain for movies and TV shows. So that one's one of the ones that could go back and forth between progression and innovation. But the important thing is that the opportunity for that to produce shows came from that innovation that was just based on that observation of, why don't we do this more cheaply? So the internet what did the internet help Netflix do in their innovation? It's one thing, and it's pretty simple.
Streaming.
Right, distribution or broadcasting or transmission. All Netflix did was, hey, we're going to use the internet to transmit information, in our case movies, to our users. So I hope we've seen that in all 5 of these use cases, all 5 of them which are global billion-dollar companies, the value that the internet provided to their innovation was done so without much more understanding than this this functional design or functional understanding of the internet. So we're going to take that same principle to approaching innovation in blockchain. And next class, we're going to discuss some fundamentals of blockchain, discuss its purpose, discuss what it does, what value it seeks to bring. But I hope that this course has left you guys with 2 things. The first thing is that anyone can innovate using participation and creativity. And the second thing is that we don't need to be experts in blockchain in order to go into a career, go into a business, or go into a new job and implement an innovative solution that uses blockchain. We only need the functional level understanding. And that's what we're going to try and give you over the next couple sessions. It's going to be much more in depth than the internet was, but we're going to really look forward to getting into those topics with you. But before we end here, I'm seeing some messages coming in. What is Netflix doing different from Amazon Video? Well, Netflix isn't doing anything different from Amazon Video, but Netflix came first. So Amazon Video is a great example of a natural progression of Amazon. They took something that someone else was already doing and they added it to their offering. Now, Netflix doing better than Amazon Video, I would attribute to brand, first movers advantage. It could be selection, but that may not always be the case. So we've got
and
GM.
It remains to be seen whether Netflix can if Amazon can overpower Netflix.
Right, and they very well may be able to do so. So this just about wraps us up. But did anyone have any questions about the second half of the session, or come up with any from the first that they wanted to ask?
Oops.
How can we revolutionize academic search engines like Pubmed and Embase? How do you think we can, GM? Do you have any ideas? It sounds like something that you've thought about in the past, or maybe experienced a disadvantage in using Pubmed. So what value would collaboration with educational institutions bring to the experience, do you think?
That'd be the credibility and authenticity. Yeah.
Sure. That's a good start. And we came up with that solution by observing your experience, right? The challenge is the research costs. So who's getting the value of authenticity? You as a student, right? So maybe you could make the case that the educators, so your university, should bear that research cost. If it can provide you with more authentic resources and research information, that's a case that could be made, but that just may not be how PubMed has thought about it yet. Maybe they have, but it's thinking about how can we do this.
That's redefining the role of faculty
Right.
They'd be
Exactly.
creating content through other mechanisms rather than through the course.
Well, to your question, Jim, I think that they would quote BMJ.
The source of the data, right? Because Wikipedia is simply a repository of information that was created from somebody else. God, it's big.
How do we make the academic search engines open source? We may not be able to. There may be a kind of a disconnect between open source and authenticity or credibility. We may need to, maybe I was just going to say the same thing. There may be a middle solution that none of us are thinking about. And there are definitely some interesting applications to a blockchain in this use case, because a blockchain does a great job of providing provability in an experience or provability of an identity or a contributor. So maybe the next Google or the next academic search engine leverages blockchain to provide authenticity in a way that is less costly than a legacy system or a legacy process might imagine.
So, thank you, Nate. This is great, right? Because I think that the idea, your premise is the idea that in order to start thinking about what is blockchain, at first we have to think about the role of innovators and
Right.
understanding how to use this technology that's replacing the internet before we can start
Right.
thinking about what is blockchain. And so we have
and that's exactly right.
Yeah. So what did everybody think about today's session? Any comments? Inspiring, overwhelming, interesting?
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I was a little worried that it was going to be information overload on those use cases, but I'm glad it was good.
I found it very challenging personally. So enlightening, AO saying, but and very, very challenging topic. So just to remind everybody that Nate has volunteered to has created a series of sessions on continuing our conversation about innovation and leveraging blockchain for that. And so the schedule is identified here. And then we have a number of other activities coming up with the Data Club. If you will continue to promote these sessions using the Analytics Hub LinkedIn group, as well as through the blockchain professors and through the George Brown marketing engine. If anybody wants to be added on to our email chain, you can private message me in the chat box so I can add you onto our distribution list for the additional reminders for the additional sessions. Unless if we had blockchain, we could have sent you automatic reminders later.
Right.
But we
Benny,
can't.
to answer your question, yes, we are going to get into some real implementations starting next session. I know that I withheld much blockchain from this course, but I hope that I have encouraged you to join the next one, because yes, we're definitely going to get into some real blockchain cases, both that we've done and both that we've designed.
Yes. So that's okay, Benny. And then Michael, I'm going to use the same meeting link for the rest of the invites. Yes.
Great.
Any other questions? I think
well,
it was
I just want to offer, if you guys have any questions or come up with any ideas or just want to chat, I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm on the West Coast, so a few hours earlier than you guys, but generally I'm available most days. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to chat or have any questions.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot, guys. That was very great. That was a very good discussion. I really appreciate your time, Nate, and to you and your team. And see everybody on the next sessions. Thanks for coming today.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Fun, 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 Tom. Thank you, guest. Thanks, Jagsbright. Wanya, tell your friends about the session in case they find it interesting as well.
Good reminder.
Yeah. Okay. Priyanka's first in, last gone.
I like it.
Thanks, Wanya. And then Daljit, are you in a did you want to share your background with us? I don't know you. Daljit? And GM, the secret person. They had some very interesting comments to make.
I'm guessing GM is comp sci or
Oh my God,
blockchain,
it's Gilbert.
given his love for privacy. Oh, was I wrong?
It's Gilbert.
Is he one of yours?
What's that?
One of your students? Is he one of your students?
Yes.
Yeah.
Never imagined. Never imagined.
That's funny.
And should I?
Okay. Well,
because are you guys hanging around to talk to Nate?
I was just going to say the same thing to you. I was going to jump off unless you wanted to stick around to chat, Karen.
No, I was gonna just drop off and leave. Maybe I was gonna leave in case they were hanging around to talk to you and they didn't want me here anymore. Okay, I'm signing off. You sign off.
Okay, well, sure, no problem.
Thanks
okay, thanks, Karen.
All right, bye. Oh,
See ya.
turning off the recording.